guys, it's Tracy here from the Academy, and I have the geography paper here in front of me, and I'm going to have a quick glance and a little bit of a review with you guys. So guys, as you all know, the geography exam is just finished, literally a couple of minutes now, and I have part 1 and part 2 of your exam paper here in front of me from that 2-hour and 50-minute exam. Now, let's start with the short questions for this year. Now, this is really my first glance at looking at these, or my first look at these short questions, so just a quick glance through them. So in the exam, there was 12 short questions, and you had to answer at least 10 out of them 12 short questions, and they were worth in total 80 marks, which was 25% of your exam paper this year. Now, just from my quick glance prior to this video, what we've seen from the paper is actually there was a good distribution of questions from both physical, regional and the skills section. So we've seen here that questions 1, questions 2, 3, 4, 5 and question 5, I should say, were all based on physical geography. Now, probably the most challenging of them questions was actually question number 2, which was on faulting, but we actually seen a very, very similar question to this before. It might have been back on the 2017 paper off the top of my head, but a very similar question we actually had seen prior to this, nearly an imitation of this question. Now, after that, we see a little bit of glaciation. Some students don't study glaciation, kind of focus in on that. They do either rivers or the sea or glaciation, so that may cause some problems for students. We see question 6, question 7 and question 8 are based on our skills section, our aerial photographs and ordnance survey maps. Now, the aerial photograph and ordnance survey map this year was based, I think it was, actually I have it here beside me, it was based in Clonmel. There was no coastline or anything like that with it. I actually have it here. It was a normal one. Actually, the urban area was quite big on it if we seen from that. Question number 9 was based on regional geography, so just one regional geography. 10 was our weather. A lot of people find that challenging, but this was just a true or false question. So you know what, even if we chance these questions, there's a 50% chance of getting them right. 11 and 12 was our statistics, so based on our skills as well. So a really, really good distribution, and kind of a normal distribution of the short questions. Nothing overly complicated or overly long that would take a huge amount of time to answer. Now, that's our first part of our paper. Again, 25% of that exam done and dusted. After this, we have the part that everybody loves to predict and everybody is always kind of a little bit afraid of, is the part 2 of the paper, our structured and essay style questions, that other 75% of the actual exam. And again, I'm saying the exam rather than your entire grade because the field study is involved there. Now, this year in your exam, what you had to do was you had to answer 3 long questions. Now, you could choose 2 from one section and a 3rd from any other section, but the 3 can't be from the one section. Now, we had to remember if we chose a question, we had to do all that question. So for instance, if you chose question number 1, you had to do all of question number 1. So that's really, really important, and each is worth 80 marks. Now, I'm going to focus in what the majority of students would have done, what I would have done with my, day school students here, my grind students, my revision courses, which would be physical, regional, and for the option geoecology. So I'm going to have a little look at them because I do feel the majority of students in the country would be going for physical geography to start off with. So physical geography was questions number 1, 2, and 3. I do think a huge amount of people are going to be taking 2 questions from this section. Now, this section was actually very, very predictable. We were really, really lucky because what came up was what we expected, a huge focus on rocks, rivers and denudation. So then 3 sections that we see every single year the examiner pulling questions from. So when we look at question number 1 was a perfect example here. We had our ordnance survey map, our sketch, comes up every single year as question 1A. Apologies, I'll go back on that. Not every single year, but the majority of years as question 1A. After that, question B, 1B, was examine how tectonic activity influenced the development of the Irish landscape. Here, this is kind of linked up to the rock cycle. It would have been our Leinster batholith and also our Basalt Plateau or Antrim Dairy Plateaus. You could have also spoke about folding here and maybe spoke about the Caledonian or the Armonican folding period as well. So again, that's a lovely question because it actually branches into different sections of the course. 1C was our human interaction with the rock cycle. We were expecting this. I know a lot of my students would have focused on geothermal energy. That's what we had prepped for because there was a huge crossover with volcanic activity there. That question, absolutely lovely. And as we know ourselves, human interaction either with rocks or rivers appeared every single year on the exam paper. However, this year, both actually appeared. So instead of usually me saying, okay, you get a 2 for 1, you actually got both of them this year, which was lovely. Question number 2, we've seen a little bit about obviously a base level change or rejuvenation. Some students may have struggled with this. That question 1A, again, rejuvenation and exostacy is a higher level topic only. So some students might have struggled, particularly with the last part, the peneplain. However, that question has appeared prior to this, so hopefully we would have been prepped for that. Question 2B was our feature of erosion. I know here we would have been looking at our waterfall, we'd have been prepped for that. That was expected this year because we did see our feature of deposition appearing on the paper last year. Our 2C, again, metamorphic rocks. Again, we had to do 2, more than likely we did marble, and we did quartzite in this case here. We were looking for either 2 sedimentary, 2 metamorphic, or 1 of each this year on the exam paper, so absolutely lovely. Question number 3, question 3A, was a little bit about plate tectonics here. I haven't looked at this in huge detail. The only part I feel from this that might have caused any difficulty maybe was to briefly explain what is the moho line. Now we would usually refer to this as our moho discontinuity, that boundary between the crust and the mantle, okay, but they referred to it as moho line, so hopefully that didn't cause any confusion. Question 3B was our physical or mechanical weathering of process or processes. Hopefully anybody who chose this question, this 3B, would have done processes rather than 1, and done freeze-thaw action and exfoliation or onion peeling, because we will get another 2 marks for even naming usually the second process there. Little label diagram in there will help us as well. Don't forget the role of temperature. Freeze-thaw action, obviously the temperatures rise above and fall below 0 degrees Celsius. Again, with exfoliation, or we may say onion peeling, when the rock is heated, it expands, and then cools, it contracts at night. Finally, 3C, and we wouldn't have expected to get 1C and 3C together. This was our human interaction with our surface processes. We would have been looking here at the impact of dams on river processes. A lovely, lovely question. And again, we always were looking for one of the other of these. The physical section was absolutely beautiful in my opinion. The regional was a little bit tougher for anybody who actually did it. Regional is questions 4, 5 and 6 in the exam. A lot of students were choosing to do their second question, or third question I should say, as regional. Looking at question number 4, question number 4A was our sketch map of Ireland. Again, that we would have actually expected last year, but we did see last year on last year's paper that our subcontinental region or continental region appeared for a second time. That wasn't expected last year. So we were waiting for Ireland to come up. I think 2015 maybe in the last time, or 2018. Apologies, I'm forgetting my years now and the excitement of this. May have been, wasn't up in a while. I would say 2015 or 2016. My brain has kind of gone a little bit now, funny. Now, in relation to question 4B, this is a new question entirely. We haven't seen this question before. We were asked to basically compare and contrast 2 European regions for transportation. Now, we've seen compare and contrast questions in relation to agriculture, kind of a focus on relief, a focus on climate, but we had never seen it in relation to transportation. So that might have caused problems. But again, with a transportation question, you can bring in population, you can bring in the relief of areas. So there was a really kind of broad spectrum of information that you could use from the course. Question 4C, we were given our cultural or our climatic region. Cultural regions, religion and language, most of us would have seen that question. That's probably one of the main that is one of the main concepts of a region questions that we do see. It's one of the most frequent. Climate, we usually get climate or a geomorphological region, but they didn't give the geomorphological here. So you did culture or climate, either. I would probably say most people would have went with culture there. Question 5 was, again, another regional geography question. The part A was based on agriculture in the EU. Question 5B was our continental, subcontinental, secondary economic activity. Again, that was the only question on our continental, subcontinental. So a big difference from last year's paper where we seen our continental, subcontinental appear on question 4, 5 and 6. Question 5C was our population distribution throughout Europe. So again, looking at where people are distributed in either the Mezzogiorno or the Paris Basin. And again, always a higher population density in our kind of low-lying relief areas. Question 6, agriculture in Ireland was our part B, and our part C was our causes and impact of industrial decline. We hadn't seen that in quite some time. Most students would have gone for the Sambre Meuse Valley here, or some people may have gone for the North Coalfields either. But again, a really, really nice question. Now, the last part of the paper that I'm going to have a little look at is the option question. So I'm going to flick over to the very back, and here we have what most students would have answered, our geoecology. Now, geoecology was one essay on its own. 80 marks in total, split up into that 60 and 20. 60 marks for your significant relevant points, the other 20 for your overall coherence. Now, I know in my case here, we focus very much on biomes rather than soils, and the biome question that came up was based around the characteristics. So we were looking at climate and how climate has impacted both soils and vegetation. A fantastic question here, because we didn't see that last year. We looked at human interference with biomes, so we were expecting the characteristics this year. The one thing I would say about this, to get your overall coherence marks, we had to make sure we weren't just giving information, but answering the question that is asked. Now, in my opinion, and again, it just depends on what you've studied, like as a student yourself, it was a very fair paper. It was very well distributed throughout kind of every little element of what we would have studied. But again, I'm saying for what I would have prepped my students for. So again, everybody's going to feel a little bit different about the paper themselves. But guys, I hope everybody maybe not enjoyed the paper, but everybody got on okay. And again, it's just about looking forward at this point.